in front of my barn doors, watching the dark clouds roll in fast when so with that ridiculous pink golf cart parked right across the entrance, like it owned the place. The HOA president's personal chariot, complete with those tacky rhinestone decals spelling out Queen of Oakwood Hills inside my barn. Could Hart Hunder, yes. That's what Inimed, my 2,000-pound Angus bull, snorting and pawing at the ground. He always got anxious before storms, and right now we needed to be moved to his reinforced shelter on the other side of the property. But Karen Fitzgerald's golf cart was blocking the only way to check my watch, 4:30 p. The weather report said we had maybe 20 minutes before the storm hit. Harda pulled out my phone and called Karen's number for the third time that week straight to voicemail, just like always, when she knew it was McCalling Thunder let out a deep bellow from inside the barn, and I could hear him ramming his massive head against the stall gate. That's when I made the decision that would change everything. If Karen wanted to play games with livestock safety, she was about learn why you don't mess with a farmer and his animals living on 5 acres in Oakwood Hills meant dealing with some unique challenges. When my wife and I bought the property 3 years ago, we knew it came with HOA restrictions, but most were reasonable: no junked cars on the lawn, maintain your fence lines, keep the grass cut, standard stuff. What we didn't know was that 6 months after we moved in, the community would elect Karen Fitzgerald as HOA president, and she would make it their personal mission to transform our rural neighborhood into her vision of suburban perfection. Most of her neighbors were fantastic. The Johnsons next door raised chickens. The Patels down the road had horses, and old Mythomson kept bees, well respected each other's space and helped out when needed. But Karen lived in the McMansion at the entrance of her community, and she despised what she called the barnyard stench that she claimed was ruining property values. Never mind that she chose to move to a rural community where the covenant specifically allowed agricultural use. The real trouble started when Karen proposed a new rule at the last OA meeting. She wanted to ban all animals over 50 pounds, claiming they were dangerous to children and alienability to the community. The board voted it down 5-1 with only Karen voting in favor. That's when her golf cart crusade began. She started patrolling the neighborhood daily, clipboard in hand, looking for any violations she could document. And somehow my farm became her primary target first. It was just annoying. She would park at the edge of my property and take photos of my barn, claiming the paint was 2 shades soft, the approved color palette. Then she compla in eat about the fence height event ho I'd exceeded code requirements, but over the past month, things had escalated dramatically. She started parking directly in front of my barn doors during what she called her inspection rounds. The first time she did it, I politely asked her to move. She sneered at me with that practiced look of disdain and said in a shrill voice, "I'm conducting official HOA business. Miss Harrison, I have every right to document safety violations on community property." When I pointed out that she was actually on my property, not community land, she waved her clipboard at me and declared, "The HOA has an easement for inspections. Look it up." I did look it up. There was no such easement, but when I brought this to the board's attention, they just sighed and said they would talk to her. Nothing changed, if anything. Karen became more brazen. She would time her inspections for when it needed to move equipment or animals, always claiming she was almost done and would move in just a minute. That minute usually stretched into an hour or more. It read to be reasonable. I really dive and invited her to tour the farm, thinking maybe if she understood how we operated, she would ease up. She showed up in a white pantsuit and four in heels, refused to step foot in the barn, and spent the entire time listing everything she found objectionable: the smell, the flies, the potential for noise, the fact that Thunder, who was calmly eating hay in his paddock, could theoretically break through the fence and terrorize the neighborhood. That creature is a menace, she said with a dramatic shudder, pointing a manicured finger. My bull, what if I escapes and charges at someone's child to have a duty as HOA president to this community from dangerous animals. She explained that Thunder was actually Q, Utadossil properly contained, and that I had $5 million in liability insurances specifically for the farm operation. She wasn't interested in facts. From that day forward, she made Thunder her personal enemy, calling him Atticking time bombing in every HOA newsletter and email blast. The situation reached a boiling point 2 weeks ago when I caught her trying to feed something to Thunder through the fence. When I confronted her, she claimed she was just documenting how aggressive he was and quickly drove away in her golf cart later that day. It found pieces of hot dog B unsneered the fence line. I don't know what she was trying to prove, but I installed security cameras after that incident. Came the letters, official HO violation notices for everything from excessive animal odors to unsightly hay bales visible from the road. Each one required a written response and documentation. It was clear harassment, but Karen was careful to stay just within the technical bounds of her authority. The other board members apologized privately, but seemed powerless to stop her this afternoon was the final straw. I had specifically told Care and the day before that I would need access to the barn between 4 and 5 p.m. to move Thunder before the storm, even sent a certified letter to the HOA board documenting my request, but there she was, golf cart strategically positioned to block both barn doors, taking selfies with my barn in the background. I walked around the property and found her posing with her phone, adjusting her oversized sunglasses despite the darkening sky. Karen, I said in the calmest voice I could manage, I need you to move your cart. There's a storm coming and Thunder needs to be relocated to safer shelter. She turned to him with a smile that didn't reach your eyes and replied in a syrupy sweet tone. Oh, Miss Harrison, I'm conducting every important safety inspection. You'll just have to wait. We can't have that dangerous animal roaming around anyway. Maybe this storm is nature's way of solving our little problem. Are you seriously suggesting my bull should be left in an unsafe structure during a severe thunderstorm? He skid, incredulous at their callousness. I'm not suggesting anything, he said with fake innocence. I'm just saying that HOA business takes priority. I'll move. When I'm finished with my documentation, these violations won't photograph themselves. Thunder bellowed again, louder this time, and I could hear him kicking at the stall walls. The wind was picking up, and the first drops of rain started to fall. I made one last attempt at treason. Karen, you're putting an animal's life at risk. Move your cart now, or I'll have to take emergency action to ensure his safety. She laughed, actually laughed, and said with a dismissive wave, oh, please, what are you going to do? Call the police. I'm sure they'll be very interested to know about Ollie or HO. Violations, besides ignore my rights. This is a public safety inspection. That's when I made my decision. I walked calmly to the barn doors, slid them open, and stepped well out of the way. All right, Thunder, I called out, come on, boy, time to go. What happened next was both terrifying and oddly satisfying. Thunder, already agitated by the approaching storm, and the unfamiliar presence of Karen's golf cart, came charging out of the barn like a black freight train. He wasn't aggressive, just startled and eager to get his usual shelter, but a Karen who had never been close to any Tia. Hing larger than her designer purse poodle, it must have looked like the apocalypse. The scream that came out of her mouth was something I'll never forget. It started as a high-pitched shriek and evolved into a wailing siren that probably alerted every neighbor within a half miles, had dropped her phone through her clipboard in the air and scrambled onto the roof of her golf cart with surprising agility for someone in designer heels. Get it away from me. She screamed at the top of her lungs, clinging to the roof of her cart like it was a life raft. Help someone, help. It's gonna kill me. Thunder for his parts topped about 10 feet from the golf carts, snorted once at the strange sight of a human perched on top of the vehicle, and then simply walked around it toward his pad, which he had no interest in. Karen, beyond mild curiosity about why she was making so much noise by now, several neighbors had rushed out to see what the commotion was about. Bob Johnson was the first to arrive, and I'll never forget the look on his face when he saw Karen on top of her golf cart, mascara streaming down her face, still screaming about being attacked by a wild beast. What in the world happened? Bo Bask, though. I could see him fighting back as Milestorm's coming needed to move. Thunder Karen's cart was blocking the barn. I explained simply, already walking toward my bull with lead rope. He warned her multiple times more neighbors arrived, including Patricia Patel, who was recording everything on her phone. Karen, are you all right? She called out, though her tone suggested she was more amused than concerned. That maniac tried to kill me with his monster. Karen shrieked, still refusing to climb down from her cart. You all saw it. He deliberately released that thing to attack me. I want him arrested. I want that animal destroyed. I calmly clipped the lead rope to Thunder's halter and led him to his reinforced shelter, making sure he had fresh water and hay. The whole process took less than 5 minutes, during which Karen continued her tirade from her perch, demanding that someone call 911, animal control, the FBI, and possibly the National Guard. When I walked back, at least a dozen neighbors had gathered, most recording with their phones. The rain was starting to fall harder, and Karen's elaborate haid, I was beginning to wilt. She looked less like an HOA president and more like a drowned cat clinging to a sinking ship. Karen, Patricia said, in a patient voice typically reserved for toddlers, the bull is gone. You can come down now. I'm not moving until the authorities arrive, Karen declared with as much dignity as she could muster while sprawled on a golf cart roof. This is assault, attempted murder, terrorism. Asifan Q Sheriff Deputy Rodriguez pulled up, followed by another patrol car. Apparently, multiple people had called 911, thought their reports varied wildly. Karen had claimed a wild bull was rampaging through the neighborhood, while others simply reported a noise disturbance. Deputy Rodriguez surveyed the scene with a wary expression of someone who had dealt with Karen before. Afternoon, folks, can someone explain what happened here? Karen immediately launched into a dramatic account that bore little resemblance to reality, according to her version. I had maliciously and deliberately released a savage beast with the intent to cause her bodily harm, possibly deaths. She demanded I bear arrested immediately and the bull be put down as a public safety hazard, Mom. Deputy Rodriguez interrupted, Are you injured? It could have been killed. Karen wailed, finally sliding down from her cart, now that law enforcement was present, but are you actually injured? P did well. No, but that's not the point, she sputtered, her face turning red. The deputy turned to me, Mr. Harrison, what's your side of this? I explained the situation calmly, mentioning the approaching storm, the blocked barn doors, and my multiple attempts to get Karen to move her cart. Several neighbors corroborated my account, with Bob Johnson adding, Tom asked her politely at least 3 times, well, heard it. She refused to move and said she hoped the storm would kill his bull. I said no such thing, Karen protested, but Patricia held up her phone. Actually, I started recording when I heard the first shout. I've got the whole conversation on video, including that part, Patricia said with a sweet smile. Deputy Rodriguez reviewed the video, took statements from witnesses, and examined the scene. After about 20 minutes, he returned to where Karen and I were standing on opposite sides of the yard. Ma'am, he said to Karen, based on the evidence and witness statements, you were blocking access to Mr. Harrison's barn, preventing him from securing his livestock before a storm. That's actually a violation of state agricultural codes. He had every right to move his animal to safety, but he could have waited. Karen protested desperately. A severe thunderstorm warning was in effect. The deputy continued, failing to secure livestock in such conditions could be considered animal neglect. Furthermore, you were trespassing on private property and creating a hazardous situation. Karen's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. I'm the HOA president. I have inspection rights. No, Mom, you don't, Deputy Rodriguez said firmly. HOA authority doesn't supersede property rights or agricultural safety codes. I'm going to issue you a citation for obstructing livestock facilities, which carries a fine of $500 if Miss Harrison wants to pursue trespassing charges. This is right, $500. Karen screeched in disbelief. This is outrageous. I'll sue. I'll have your badge. It. Head deputy remained unmoved. Ma'am, you're lucky. Mr. Harrison's bull is well trained. If the animal had actually been aggressive and someone got hurt because you blocked its helter access, you'd be facing much more serious charges. As Deputy Rodriguez wrote up the citation more dram, a was unfolding. Several board members had arrived, having been alerted by the numerous phone calls and social media posts that were already circulating. I recognized David Sterling, the board vice president, and Linda Foster, the treasurer. Karen, David said in a stern voice I'd never heard him use before. We need to have an emergency board meeting. Now, this can wait until our regular meeting. Karen sighed dismissively, still focused on arguing with the deputy about her citation. Noit Linda interjected, We've received over 30 complaints in the last hour, 1 videos of this incident. Ariel ready on social media. You've made our community look like a circus. What followed was perhaps the most satisfying hour of my life. The emergency board meeting was held right there in the Johnsons' garage with half the neighborhood in attendance. Karen tried to maintain control, but David quickly called for a vote of no confidence. The motion passed 4-1 with only Karen voting against. Diddy, you can't da this, Karen shrieked, her voice reaching new octaves. I'm the duly lead president. I demand a proper hearing. You'll get, David assured her, but effective immediately. You're suspended from all HOA duties pending a full community vote. And Karen, I strongly suggest you get a lawyer based on the documentation Tom has provided. You could be facing harassment charges. The final blow came when someone in the crowd mentioned that Karen worked as a real estate agent for Platinum Properties. Oh boy, someone muttered. Wait until her broker sees these videos. Karen's face went from red to white as the implications hit her. In our state, real estate agents could lose their licenses for criminal convictions or behavior that reflected poorly on their professional reputation. The videos of her screaming hysterically on top of a golf cart while demanding an innocent animal be destroyed were already being shared with captions like Realtor Gone Wild and HOK Arn versus Bull. The next morning, the community vote was held via emergency ballot. Karen was removed from the HOA board by a vote of 147-3. The 3 votes in her